The At Your Instep podcast is brought to you by Comic Town. Check them out at www.worldofcomictown.com or search for Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook. Hello, and welcome to At Your Instep. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Dave.
What's up?
And Mike.
This guy.
And we have another fun-filled episode for you folks this week. Tons of stuff to talk about. We have so many events over the weekend, some that we completely forgot about last week. 2 GPs, actually. We're not perfect. Yeah. We never claimed to be.
That's on me. That's my bad.
Apologies to GPs in general, because actually we got more than that wrong last week. It was brought to our attention that also my ranting about double queuing for PPTQs isn't possible. Yeah, Flights don't count as new tournaments, so you can't re-queue.
Start off the show with some corrections. You can't double queue for PPTQs. And GP Brisbane and GP Vancouver happened over the weekend, which were both modern, and we will be talking about them. So apologize. Last week wasn't our best. We'll do better. Maybe this week. No promises. No promises.
We'll try.
We'll try. We'll definitely try.
That's all we can do.
Exactly.
Mistakes were made. Attempts will be made.
So we have a few community topics, and the bulk of the show is going to be our competitive segment, since we had SCG Baltimore, which is like 3 events, and then 3 events after that technically, and then 2 more modern events. So tons of information here. But let's get the show started off right with the community segment. So we had a huge, sort of huge reveal. I don't know. It's kind of a big deal, kind of not. We have some packaging basically get released for Modern Masters 2017 as well as Emoket. So let's start off with Emoket. So art and details on sort of the distribution of some full art lands were released for Emoket, which is kind of interesting. So there, as we mentioned, there are going to be promotional full art lands for Emoket, but also that's not the only way that you can actually get these full art lands. 1 in 4 booster packs, which is the ratio that Wizards put forth, will have a full art. For lack of a better term, Nicol Bolas basic. The art on this on these lands is I really like it. It's very much so like an emphasis that this is a plane where Nicol Bolas is definitely made it his world, and his horns are the iconic sort of horn statue is apparent on all of these lands. So I kind of like it because they're sort of unified. They all have a motif that they're going for pretty much, or at least like iconography that they're all hitting. So like they all kind of blend together. But I think they look pretty sweet. And, this could be, your full art lands du jour, if you so chose.
Yeah, I really like the art on these. And like you said, the fact that they're all kind of tied together by the Nicol Bolas horns makes it pretty cool and unique to this plane. So.
I just wish that they had some like iconic images that didn't remind me of Halo laser swords. We had this all over Kaladesh, and here we are again. Yep. I mean, I like these. I really do like the art, and I get what they're going for, but I don't know. I think full art lands are being overused. Like, that's just how I feel they are. Like, either make them special, like, they don't happen that often, because, spoiler alert, the Battlefield Zendikar is still in standard, so it's not like that was that long ago. Or just make it standard. Make it like, this is what lands look like now, because I think that's fine. So, I get it, this is for Nicol Bolas, but I don't know. It feels overused. I'll
meet you in the middle. What if they did full art basics, but they made the look of them different? So you know how we had the unglued full arts, and then we had unhinged full arts, and then we had the Zendikar full arts. So those were all different, I guess, styles.
Oh yeah, had they changed the frame on this a little bit, I'd be more receptive.
Yeah, if they changed it around a little bit, I think that'd be a cooler way to do it.
Suggesting that the Bolas imagery is them changing it, but I don't know this. I'm not as excited as I should be about this. And maybe that's just me personally. If you're really happy for them, then by all means be happy for them. I like them. I will be glad to use them. But if I'm a new player and I open one of these, I'm excited. But then my next question is, why do these other basic lands exist? Are they there just to make me unhappy? You know what I mean? This isn't a common that you would draft. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like how they have to make bad cards so that the good cards look good.
Should that matter for basic lands though?
No, not really.
Literally, like, this guy over here opened a cool basic land, and I opened a trash sandwich. That's weird how that worked.
Yeah.
Like, just like, and I understand that I said sandwich, and I'm sorry for that.
Sandwich.
A trash sandwich.
Yeah, it's sort of an in between where it's like they're trying to make these special by making them limited, but then like it's not at a high enough ratio where you would feel like you're getting like something unique and special.
No, you just feel like your pack was stupid.
Yeah.
I will say this: foils of these, they're gonna make foils, right?
I mean,
I would imagine so.
Well, assumedly the promos they're going to release are going to be these. And they are premium. Are the promo ones? So assumedly these would be the same art that's going to be on those lands.
Yeah, those are going to be nice.
Yeah, they'll be nice.
So they'll probably be somewhat expensive.
I wouldn't mind looking into those for Battle Box. I will be honest for that.
Yeah, it's nice. Again, it's nice that they're all sort of like a unified idea, which is nice for your decks and stuff like that. Also, for any people that play Commander and have Nicol Bolas as their general, buddy, I bet you're jazzed.
just Grixis Delver, you know.
Yeah, there you go.
Throw them in there.
So along with these lands, we also have some more packaging and more art from Amoket. So we have the Planeswalker decks. So we get a kind of a sneak peek of at least 2 of the Planeswalkers that we will be getting in Amoket. And it's the 2 of the Gatewatch people. It's going to be Gideon and Liliana. So we have their Planeswalker decks, which have the alternate versions of the Planeswalkers. So we will be seeing new Gideon and new Liliana cards coming in Amoket.
And by alternate, you mean worse?
Correct. Very bad.
Probably expensive and worse
Super
versions.
duper bad.
So now we have 3 Nissa in Standard, including the Planeswalker deck, 3 Chandra in Standard, and then we'll have 3 Gideon in Standard, 3 Liliana in Standard. Cool. Not too many.
I mean, hopefully we'll get a new Planeswalker, right?
I'm sure we will. It'll probably have some sort of infinite combo that breaks the game.
Assumedly, the other Planeswalker, I don't know if it'll be this set or Hour of Devastation. I don't know. Nicol Bolas will be here at some point in time. Or that Dark Intimations card, not doing much, not making waves.
That'll be, that'd make that card awkward for sure.
I do wonder when's the best time for him to hit. I would imagine Hour of Devastation, though, right? Like
that would be the Hour of Devastation.
Yeah, he's just there, wrecking stuff. Being all evil.
I do want to mention that I appreciate that Gideon has changed clothes.
Yeah, he got some new armor. He leveled up from Kaladesh.
One of the things that Back to the Future taught me is that you have to have money and clothing for every possible time era you would go to, and these are Planeswalkers. They just in the lore
they try to blend in,
but in the lore, even people make mention of you wear funny clothes, and it's wouldn't step 1 of blending in be buy new clothes? Liliana doesn't care; she's literally still wearing the same dress. I'm sure there are a lot of dresses like that on Amonkhet, the very sandy desert themed area. At least Gideon was you know what, maybe this, or he just wanted to show off more of his muscles. Maybe a Johnny got him feeling I got muscles too.
He's a little insecure now.
Hey, look at these. I'm ripped. I may not be cat ripped, but we're also getting Arch Enemy again.
Yes, that's correct. Arch Enemy, Nicol Bolas is, I believe, what it is, the full name of the product, and we knew about this, coming in. So, but it's kind of cool to see it. So it comes in a really big box too, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, I kind of wonder what this is going to be all about, because I've never been around. I haven't been playing since there was an actual Arch Enemy release, and so I've never played it.
So Arch Enemy to me has always been interesting because I really feel like they took a cue from something the WoW card game did when it existed. Not Hearthstone, the actual World of Warcraft TCG. They had raids. So you could buy Molten Core or Onyxia, and then you would battle against the raid deck, and that was sort of interesting. And the way they're marketing this, if you look at the box for it, it says 2 to 4 players and how much time it takes. So this box, you say the big box, this box definitely looks like a board game.
Oh yeah,
it's marketed like a board game. This is out of the box magic. You can just learn how to play the game and play the Arch Enemy version of the game, as a standalone thing. So
That's pretty
that's kind of
interesting.
an interesting marketing tool for that.
And then we got some art for some of the other, so we have a new art for the main planeswalkers that we were talking about, so Gideon and Liliana, and then we also have a new Nissa art, and we have some art for these, sort of big, giant, prolific, godlike creatures, for lack of a better term. Which seemingly, is kind of all but confirming the return of gods. And we've had, trials of the gods mentioned from Amonkhet and stuff like that. So these could be, a new pantheon that we're going to be introducing with Amonkhet. Now, these gods do look decidedly less ethereal.
There's no, like, Nick stars.
No, they all seem like solid constructs of some persuasion. So, which I'm interested to see what they do. They all look like they have like a metal or a metallic sheen, so I don't know if that's just to fit in with the world or anything like that, or if that has any actual card implications for these. But I don't believe that they will be enchantments.
And they also stick with the sort of Egyptian theme by being animal themed.
Yep.
So we have Cat God.
Cat God.
Cat God.
Cat God.
He's not alone in this world, though, even though he's a little cat god. He's not even little, actually. He's kind of there's little birds in there.
Yeah, a giant. Yeah, you have scale birds.
Yeah, when they throw in the birds, it's like, oh, that's how big it is. Okay.
And then we have like
Crane,
an ibis,
crane god,
but ibis.
Or a heron god is more than likely.
Okay. And then we have
see, the heron god's confusing though because he is a bird, and then they have scale birds, so I don't know which one.
Yeah, but gator god,
gator god.
Oh man, I like Croco god, but I like gator god too.
It's the god of Florida. Let's be fair.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know. I'm fairly certain it's an ibis, but that's just a little bit of anything I know from like that culture.
Oh man, I just noticed this. So if you look at gator god, if you look at the art, like look way in the back, like on the bottom left, you can see the.
Like the gator temple?
The bolus horns, like way off, off.
I
in the
thought you could see like
there.
another gator head next to him too, down on the ground. Like down right here.
Yeah. I think that's just a rock. But
okay.
No, I think those are temples.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the packaging, you can also see like a temple for the fox or jackal god. We're not quite sure what the animal is.
Temple of like maybe I don't know, Malice.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I would be not at all shocked if they brought back the Scryland temples. So.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be excited about like more tap lanes for standard, but
those were good.
They were out of the recent lands that we got in like Sands, like shock lands, and yes, like new lands. They were probably the best that weren't already reprinted, like fetch lands or shock lands.
As long as there's a mix of lands that come into play untapped as well, and the fast lands that we got in Kaladesh were pretty good. So I mean,
I guess that's true, fast lands, but they're kind of finishing a cycle, so
right. But you can't just have all tapped lands. Like so I'm saying, you need to have a mix, right? Because the aggro decks need lands too. So.
Pretty sure they have 2 City of Brasses. So then we have Cobra Commander as the last god.
Yeah, snake god. As if like the snakes need to be more powerful in standard. They get their own god. Like, come on, let's be real.
Yeah, they already printed the snake god. It cost the black and green.
Yeah, it was a plant.
So like, there's probably one for each color here. You would have to assume. Right, so the cat would be white. The ibis, is that what you call it?
Yeah, it's an ibis.
That's probably the blue one.
At least I think it's an ibis.
The gator god's probably black. Jackal, I would think, would be red, and then the snake would be green.
Probably.
Yeah.
So
here's some here for your viewing pleasure.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, see, like this is the ibis god for the ancient Egypt. I googled this, so if you want to see the image I'm looking at and showing Dave, that's why I think it's an ibis or an ibis. I don't remember how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. If you're like screaming at me, I apologize.
Stop screaming.
Yeah, seriously, you can't hear us anymore.
I can't. Yeah. Yeah. Ibis. That definitely. I agree. Everyone Google search ibis. It comes right up and looks exactly like that.
Wow, this is content.
Oh yeah.
While you're doing that, I will say, going back to the Liliana art is awesome, and I saw one that is kind of zoomed out a little bit, so you could see what's around her, and there's definitely like mummies.
Oh, yeah,
like,
it's mummies.
serving her,
So,
fruit and stuff.
Mummies confirmed.
It's awesome. Yeah.
All right.
Ibis. Thank you.
Thanks, Macmillan Dictionary.
So, we also have some interesting art from like the packaging, but nothing we can really look into that much. We have.
It feels very like
We have a Sphinx.
ancient Egyptian.
We do have a
I will say
Sphinx.
that.
Yeah.
We do have some, and then like the rest of them are just like other humanoid characters. One of them looks like again like a jackal guy.
So like the female character looks definitely like not human in the face either, like almost cat-like if I had to guess. So I wonder if that's like is that a new race? Am I just seeing it wrong, or is that like what Leonin looked like maybe on this plane?
It'll be fairly interesting. So we obviously aren't going to get much more information anytime soon. Not till like April, I believe, is when the spoilers start, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought they said something about it here.
No, we're about to hit this other packaging we got. We're about to hit that spoiler season.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Previews start April 3rd, and there's going to be a special article March 27th as well. So
Yeah, it's only about a month.
yeah, it's still some time. I'm going to keep it on the back burner because we do starting next week. We have spoilers for Modern Masters 2017 starting. Technically, spoilers have started like yesterday because through this lovely packaging, we have at least 3 cards we know for sure we're getting. So the packaging has Domri Raid, which a lot of people are kind of disappointed in. Not necessarily making waves in Modern or anything like that, but he's still like a theoretically powerful planeswalker, and it's not cheap.
It was a quite good card in its time.
I miss it in Standard. Oh man, Domri Raid was the best.
You know, in the past I've played Domri Raid before in Modern in Zoo Strategies. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, I know.
There's that hidden herbalist deck we've been talking about.
So you know what's really good with Domri Raid is when you make your creature with Death Touch fight like any other creature. It's really good. We have the weird one, which is Stoic Angel, which is a card that Mike and I didn't know existed.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I wonder what the art's at for. And then so he was like, oh, no, that's just Stoic Angel.
So Stoic Angel is kind of an interesting one because it's a bad card. It's not very interesting. It's like a 3/4 for Bant, so white, green, blue, and 1, a generic for a 3/4 angel with flying and vigilance, and then players can only untap 1 creature each untap step, if I'm not mistaken, and it's a symmetrical effect, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
We could easily look this up.
Yeah, sure, but that's fine. I like recalling things from memory
Literally
way better.
didn't know it existed until
Correct.
we looked for this.
I didn't play Magic at that point in time when it was a Lara block, but I think it's interesting because this is a 3-color card, and we've never had a distinctly 3-color card in a Modern Masters set. All the cards have been 2 colors, or 5 colors technically if you count Progenitus and Hoarded Notions, but those were rares and they were one-offs. There wasn't necessarily something that you would be consistently able to do in draft, but if there is a rare that's banned, then theoretically achieving 3 colors should be somewhat consistent. Now, that's pure conjecture. We don't have the rest of the set. We don't know what it looks like, but it's just weird. I just want to point that out. In the last card, we have the only Hook Hands, Grizzle Daddy. Grizzle brand is branded on this packaging.
Also good value, what with the flooding of GP promos. So
yeah.
Oh wait,
he's still not cheap.
No, he's seen a lot of play recently.
Correct.
So
he was a hot buy over the weekend in Baltimore. I saw him on at least 1 board. So people wanted him, and Black Red Reanimator is picking up. We also have the breaking and entering decks, which are using him as well. So it's not exactly like he's not playable. He's still one of the most powerful cards ever printed in Magic, at least that can be reprinted, I should say. So still like I'd almost expected Black Mythic to show up here, so not too surprising. The last art that we have is this mysterious man that is on the actual sort of stand up part of the booster box. We do not know who this man is. He could be a mage of Snapcaster variety, but again, no confirmation of anything.
Prodigal Sorcerer.
yeah. It's what is it? Tim? Yeah, it's Tim. You know what? Very Tim-like, to be perfectly honest.
There are some who call him Tim.
Yeah,
not everyone.
Not everyone. But I would say a good see, it's super hard because you see this card. The packaging for this set is blue. It's very heavily blue. So I don't actually know if that's like the actual like color of the card art too.
Or it could just be tinted because that's that's
exactly
the color of the box. Yeah.
So like you have to be careful being like, oh, there's a blue card. It's like, well, no, it could just be any color. I mean, it could also just be Snapcaster Mage. So
we'll find out soon.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually really excited. From what we've been hearing through the grapevine via Twitter and stuff, it looks like you're going to have an opportunity to get your hands on this product. And even we have like recent Eternal Masters like product allotments to even go from. So if they at least match that, then finding Modern Masters packs will not be too much of a difficulty. And I don't think that they've had I don't think Modern Masters itself has been really bad. I'm just glad they're going back to regular packaging for Modern Masters.
No more cardboard boxes.
No more boxes, man. Those are terrible. And they've ruined cards, which is like the worst part about them.
Yeah, and you had cards that were dented, and it's like, this is awkward.
Plus, you had cards that were banned that were in it.
Yeah.
That'll probably happen again.
Yeah, hopefully not. But I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. Last thing that we wanted to talk about here was something that it was a simple exchange on Twitter, but something worth mentioning. People were, kind of talking a lot about Modern. There was a lot of Modern coverage over the weekend, and talking about like maybe some cards that could come off the ban list, and one of them happened to be Jace the Mind Sculptor.
It's about that time of year. What is it? Late February? Oh, okay. So
yeah, exactly.
It's time to start talking about Jace being unbanned again.
So. Apparently, Aaron's Forsyth, and I believe like his tweet was like we will do our due diligence as we always do and discuss unbanning Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah.
So I feel like they've talked about unbanning this card a lot in Modern.
Right.
Yeah, there was like a pretty strong argument between Shaheen Sarani and like Sam Black, I think, on Twitter. Like obviously Shaheen like wants Jace, like he wants Jace. Shocking. But Sam was saying like he thinks it would really be disruptive to the format, and like looking at some of the decks that are doing well, like the Death Shadow, like man, I don't know. Tapping out on turn 4, like even to bounce a creature may not be as good as it once was, but at the same time, like you're looking at a card that despite multiple printings now, you know what I mean? Like you have an Eternal Masters printing, you had a From the Vault printing. Man, it really hasn't gone down very much, and it would spike through the roof if they unbanned it, which makes it, I think that's really the issue that makes that card even so difficult to unban. Is it just like okay, unbanned, you're priced out, cool, okay, good, good, move on. Now, granted, if it's not good, then it just comes back down, maybe, but it's not obviously seeing any Modern play right now, and it's still expensive. So
right, yeah. So it's at its floor right now
for Modern,
essentially. Yeah. I don't know. I'll still stand by and say, I've said it in the past, I think it'd be a good card in Modern, but I don't think it would be overpowered by any means. I think there's a lot of decks in Modern that are doing things that make Jace kind of irrelevant. Either killing you before you could even cast it and whatnot. But I mean, it's still a great card. Like it's not like it's going to be bad, but I don't think it would just completely dominate the format. I think people would be able to adjust to it, and you can do things that make Jace pretty bad. So,
yeah, I mean that's certainly an interesting argument.
Like Jace against Affinity, yeah, okay, like
yeah,
bounce a creature and then it dies immediately. I mean, I don't know.
It's still such a big card. It's like I think that's probably one of the hardest cards to like evaluate in its impact in a format. In all honesty, especially something like Modern, I feel like you introduce that and then you just have to like, hold your breath and wait, and see what happens. And then there are a lot of people that are like, well, if you want to safely unban Jace, then you can just unban Bloodbraid Elf at the same time, and then they kind of cancel each other out, which is another argument that I've seen. And then the other thing that I've seen is that we don't know what's in Modern Masters. They could unban Jason to just show up there.
They could be like super proactive about it and be like, "Oh, we weren't going to tell you guys, but just have it be in the set."
Yeah,
Merry Christmas
is like the super tinfoil hat theory, because they don't just like do things like that.
Yeah, like I'm sorry, Jace the Mind Sculptor sells packs. Like Jace the Mind Sculptor would be the generic blue guy slapped right on the front of that.
Oh yeah.
Cover, so
Would this be like the reverse? Like, sorry, we put banned cards in the last Modern Masters, so we're going to give you some banned cards now that we plan on unbanning. It's like the other way around.
Yeah. You get a little glass case with your box.
So we have the secondary like banned and unbanned thing happening around that time. Basically, I think it's like a week before release or something like that. I don't know. So that's why they're saying like, oh, we'll have these things coincide, and then yeah, there's synergy. That's probably not going to happen.
No.
It's pretty interesting. It's kind of an interesting idea. So we'll see what happens. But man, that card's powerful. I couldn't just be like, yeah, just do it. It'll be fine. And like Modern's already pretty diverse in the first place, so it's kind of hard to be like, we still need more diversity.
I think the argument is that there's still you do have decks like Grixis Control, which can be good. And then you occasionally see, Jeskai or Blue White and stuff like that, but they're not consistently good in the metagame. And Modern is largely dominated by decks that are proactive or doing something broken. So, if you were looking to balance the format, then Jace is kind of a deck. That's a card that you can give the control decks to try to balance it a little bit more.
Sure.
Now, you could argue Modern's fine right now. We don't really need to do that, which I kind of agree with. But, I mean, there are people that like playing Control, then that could be frustrating that there's not a style. There's pretty much almost a style of deck for everybody, but, like, Control is kind of... It's hard to make it work.
Yeah, if you pick that style, you might be at a disadvantage,
right,
comparatively speaking. So, yeah, that's very true. I believe that's everything for our community segment. Before we jump into competitive, I do want to give a shout out to our lovely sponsor, Comic Town. They just announced a bunch of expo events that are going to be happening in conjunction with their championship series. So this is ways you can get points or straight out qualify for the end of the year tournament, which you definitely, that should be one of your goals. So definitely go to Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook, check out their events page, and see all of the events that they've just announced. You can also go to worldofcomictown.com as well and check out their calendar there and check out some of the upcoming expos as well as championship series. What's with the SH sounds? We just can't avoid it.
Just want to be a bunch of Sean Connerys.
Apparently. Championship series events that will be happening in the near future. There's some really exciting ones. They just announced a Modern Masters 2017 sealed event. There's a Team Trios event. So yeah, there's plenty of stuff that is unique that can get you qualified for this end of the year tournament. So definitely get on it. All right.
Speaking of unique,
yes, we have our competitive segment.
I'm gonna get a drink.
So before we jump into Baltimore and Brisbane and Vancouver, let's go ahead and talk about what happened at Comic Town over the weekend. There was a large, surprisingly large, some might say, Frontier event. It was a 1K expo, and Dave, you were in attendance, so break it down for us. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so ended up being 40 players.
Which is a lot.
Which was, I think, double what the expectation was for this event. So it's quite the turnout. Not as large as some of the Japanese events we've seen, but I mean, this still being the first kind of larger event in this area. It was pretty awesome to see people come out for that. It was the first time I was able to play Frontier at all, so I didn't even play any test games. I just showed up with the cards that I had. So I ended up playing Atarka Red. Honestly, I didn't think I was going to be able to make it to this event, but some circumstances changed at the last minute. I was able to come, so didn't really have time to brew anything up spicy, so just played Atarka Red. But yeah, the metagame was pretty much as expected. I think there was a lot of Abzan, decent amount of Bant Company and Rally decks, and then a pretty good amount of Atarka Red strategies. There were some other kind of one-off strategies. I think there was like a blue-white control. I saw like an Esper control, I think top-aided. There was a Turbo Fog deck in the room. So it was, some people decided to branch out a little bit, but for the most part, it was what you would expect from if you have a bunch of people, and I don't know if anybody else in the room had even played Frontier before, so you can imagine just kind of the level 1 strategy decks, like, oh, I still have these cards from when I played it in Standard, I'm going to play this now.
Right.
If I had my choice, I probably would have played the Grixis and Soul Artifact deck, but I didn't have all the cards for it, and I couldn't get everything at the last minute, so I just went with the deck that I had, and it was fine. I ended up with a mediocre 3-3, but I did have a win in. I was 3-1 at one point, and then I lost to the eventual winner, Matt Welch, in round 5.
Shout out to Matt Welch, local player.
Yep, he was playing a 4-color, I guess, Mardu green, so it was kind of like Abzan with red for like Goblin Dark Dwellers and Kolaghan's Commands and Radiant Flames, which you can imagine is pretty tough to beat for a darker red. Yeah, but it was hard fought, but yeah, I mean it was a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of room for exploration. I think the decks that we saw were kind of base level, but I do feel like there is some room to brew there, and I think if it becomes a more regular thing, I think you'll see the format kind of develop a little bit. But yeah, anyway, I mean it was a lot of fun. The games were interactive. If you haven't played the format, I suggest you give it a chance because, it wasn't too bad. So.
Fair enough. All right. Well, now that we're done and Mike has promptly returned to his seat, we can go ahead and talk shop about Baltimore. So Baltimore is team unified, so it's a little bit different than your typical tournament. So we kind of are going to be talking about teams. And the event itself was, what was it, the top 4 teams?
Top 4 was the cut, yes.
Yeah, top 4 was the cut for the final event. And team, let me see here, Stark, Nass, and Pardee were the eventual winners of the tournament. Big shocker there.
The 2 platinums and a Hall of Famer.
Yes, correct. They were definitely had the team with the most experience, and we know that in team events, even in something like team like Constructed, the cream rises to the top. They were the best players. I guess some of the best players there, I should say. Were actually a glut of good teams, in all honesty. And, we do see them performing very well and winning the tournament, so congratulations to them. And like I said, Pardee has been a part of some of our content. So, in all honesty, it's pretty cool to see him up there and winning the tournament.
I mean, Sam Pardee and Matt Nass have teamed before.
Yeah.
You saw them with Jacob Wilson before, do well in team events, and like the joke was made that they were able to win this one without Jacob Wilson winning a match as well. So, but yeah, and I think not only were they just great players, I think they had great decks for
the tournament.
They had,
so for the standard, it was Ben Stark, and he was playing Black Green Delirium.
Were you going to say Benjamin Stark?
Benjamin Stark, yes, correct. No, just kidding. We also have Matt Nass playing Death Shadow Aggro, which I know that Dave felt so validated by all the results this weekend.
I was happy
as if he was being as if shunned by the community.
Dave against the world.
Yeah. And then Sam Pardee was playing Sultai Control.
That was kind of the Reed Duke deck, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
With a bunch of Leovolds, I assume.
4 true names, yeah, Leovolds. Yeah.
Yep. Now, I do want to give a shout out here to a team that did also perform very well, at least a particular member of a team, which is Billy Mitchell. Billy Mitchell's a fan of the show, so congratulations. You were playing Legacy, so we've never helped you out in any way, shape, or form. But I do want to give a shout out because he was one of the first people that I ever remember coming up to us in a tournament and saying hi and like genuinely being like appreciative of the show. So it's good to see you have some like, success. And I feel really sad and disappointed that we didn't like get to talk with you and like say hi again, because it's not you all the time that our paths cross, because I know that he's at least last time I checked was in like the PA Philadelphia area. So
I believe it was Billy from Philly.
Billy from Philly, correct. That's why he's so memorable. So sorry that we didn't say hi or anything like that, but I definitely want to send our congrats your way, because you definitely had some stiff competition in the top four.
It's a great finish,
and to get to the top four is an amazing finish. So hats off to you and your team.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams here that didn't make it that I'm looking at, and I'm like, oh wow, like I mean,
Dave, you did it with Delvers.
I know.
Grixis Delver, you're a man after Dave's heart.
Doing it with Grixis Delver and Legacy isn't as hard as it is in Modern.
Oh wow, okay, cool. Isn't it?
I mean,
you just said his Delvers were easy mode.
I mean, it's a good deck in Legacy. It's okay in Modern.
Maybe maybe they just don't flip for you anymore.
Wow,
they flip just fine. It's just
my Delvers flip just fine, man. What are you trying to say?
Yeah. Oh man,
it may not always be on turn one, but they flip.
They get the job done.
Do you need a special pill? Come to flip.
Is brainstorm the pill? Like
that's exactly
you don't have that in Modern.
The little blue pill.
Yeah, you gotta do it. You gotta take natural supplements in Modern. It's like, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Has these serum visions been like approved by the FDA? Nope.
No.
Straight from Mirrodin. Drink it in.
Anyway,
we got a shout out to the fifth place team, right? We had Shaheen Sarani, Dan Musser,
Daw Musser.
Yeah, Daw Musser.
Daw Musser,
Daw.
and
Daryl
Daryl Ayers.
That was good. They missed on breakers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Now, did you guys think what do you think of the format? I guess not the format like the 3 different constructed decks, but like the top 4 cut. Did that feel like? I guess every other team event is that way, right?
Yeah.
So the top 4 cut was an issue. I do know a lot of people were complaining about the
prize structure.
Well, the day 2 cut was the 24 teams. 25th place was 6, 1, and 2, and like it felt weird like as for the cut, because the day 2 felt incredibly tiny. Like it's a lot of players technically, but team wise it just felt
small.
So you had 300 teams, right?
Yes.
So it was capped.
Yes.
So they hit the cap, 300 teams.
24.
So out of 300 teams, 24 made it?
Yes. It felt
Ugh.
tiny.
Ugh.
So
I guess, that worked out for Star City, though, because they got some pretty good numbers on their classics.
Oh, no.
They had a lot of people
sure.
not doing anything on Sunday.
I wouldn't be surprised if they move it to like top 32, though.
That makes more sense.
So, because like the argument was, because I think it was DeCandio's team, like DeCandio and Todd Stevens, and I think they were Team Dapper because they were all dressed in very nice suits. Which let me tell you, there was some sweet like.
Oh man!
So we just did like the Comic Town shirt and like the PT hoodies, which was fine. Definitely a team in purple turtleneck sweaters and gold chains.
Yeah.
And sunglasses. That team was on
turtleneck and chain.
Oh, turtleneck and chain.
Yeah, Team Turtleneck and Chain.
Yeah, it was so good.
Spot on.
There were a couple of people in like full like pajama costumes.
Yeah, the Kirigumi, I can't pronounce it, but yes, they're like the Japanese full body pajamas that are in animals, basically.
So there was some cool teams. But anyways, I will say that like their team being 6, 1, and 2, right? But like pretty much 12 and 3 is what top 4'd. So like they were super live for like top 4ing the event.
Yeah.
So the cut seems weird. I think that's why the question was there.
I think, and credit to Star City. I know Cedric had a post on Twitter saying, what could we have done better, and willing to take feedback, or, like, what did you like, what did you not like? And I think it's great that he could have easily said, I think for the most part, what I read was it was overwhelmingly positive, just from even people that didn't go. There were a lot of people saying, man, I wish I went to this, or man, I wish they had Grand Prix in this format. Why isn't this a thing? So, great job by Star City for actually making it a reality.
Yeah.
But also, good job in taking feedback. Like, like we know that this was a successful event, but how can we make it better?
Sure.
So.
Also, shout out to, I just want to quickly hear, Pat Sullivan's team for the top 8 teams, or 8th, I think. Man, he still got it.
Oh yeah.
They featured him in round 1, and he ended up losing his match to Merfolk. It's always sweet seeing just the 20 basic Arabian Nights mountains, though.
Well, I just love, like, if you look at so we're looking at these on MTG Goldfish.
Maybe look at the pricing.
The pricing, the paper price for all these decks, $3,000, $2,600, $236.
Yeah, you could play Legacy on the cheap,
Don't
sir.
tell me the Legacy's overpriced.
Yeah, don't tell me you're priced out of the format, man.
Now, if you turn those 20, let's see, what version of mountain did they put here? Okay, it's a full art Battle for Zendikar land.
Oh no!
Now, if you change that to an Arabian Nights mountain, then
it's just as much as the other decks.
Yeah, what are they, like $50 a pop or whatever?
I haven't looked in so long. It's something obnoxious.
Many dollars. We understand. There's a way that you can make burn like the same price as every other Legacy deck.
Not that you have to.
I just love that if you look at the pricing of this list, the only card that's actually worth money is Goblin Guide.
Yes,
it's more than half the cost of the deck.
Correct. Correct. And then, if that gets reprint Mon Masters, man, that's like your budget Legacy deck that could, top 8 a tournament, theoretically.
So, no, as far as like the structure of the format, I think it was great. Like, it was super like skill intensive. Just being while sitting there, because I was the C match, I was standard. So like looking at my match and then looking over to like Morgan's and then also trying to like pay attention to Jordan's, like switching formats in your head and like trying to think of like, hey, what should I play around here? Wait, which match is this? What cards does your opponent have? Like, there's a ton of processing information on the fly, which felt like really satisfying and like was I don't know, I had a lot of fun. We didn't even do very well and we had a ton of fun.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of people are kind of retroactively like, what is it? Is it GP Dallas that's coming up? It's unified.
The unified,
modern.
yeah.
Like, wait, can't we just change this to
unified constructed?
Yeah. I think it was nice that there were no constraints. Like, you could just play real decks. So you didn't have to compromise your deck because you're sharing, with your teammates. Which, on one hand, it's a skill and like figuring out like the best, the best mix when you have those constraints. But on the other hand, it's like, it's cool that we can just play real decks. You know what I mean? Like, I have experience with this deck. I don't want to have to play, a suboptimal version of this.
And theoretically, it allows you to like potentially play a deck that might be a little bit more fringe, because you have the potentiality of your teammates, picking up a match that you may not, theoretically. Because like, if you look at Shiki Serrani, he played Esper Control, which is a standard deck that's certainly off the beaten path. Now, something that he's a master of. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like I imagine that he probably played that deck the best that anyone else could. But I think that him being able to play that deck effectively, as well as him, being able to lean on his teammates a little bit, makes him be able to do that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like you can take some losses and like it may not hurt you.
Yeah,
because your teammates can pick you up. So yeah.
And to be fair, he's the only non big 3 deck. The top 22 what we have here in standard.
The only other thing you have that shows up that's a little bit different is probably the Abzan mid-range list.
Sorry, I assume that's a snake deck, is it not?
I haven't looked at it, but I assume it plays.
It's not. It's okay. Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Fair enough. But so he's the only one that sort of steps outside of the bounds. But again, it might give you that flexibility to do so and do that, and a lot of the diversity that you actually see is going to be in modern, where it is the most diverse format. We Mike and I and Jordan kind of felt the brunt of that with the matchups that I played. I don't think I ever played the same thing like twice, which is pretty crazy.
No, we got smacked around with some pretty off the wall things like the return of like Living End and boggles and that sort of thing.
Yeah, just like stuff you can't really like play around or plan around necessarily or expect seeing. So, but them's are the breaks with modern. Sometimes you just like don't have the right deck or the right cards for the matchups you see. So, but it's still fun. Like you still like try. You still have hope that you can draw in such a way and play in such a way that give you your best shot, your best chance at winning. So. Although modern is wide, I don't feel like the deck. I played Band Eldrazi, and I didn't think I thought that the deck had, out of all the decks that I have access to, sort of the most amount of play. It sort of still had a somewhat linear strategy that I could get behind. So I felt that it was sort of and it's still one of the best decks in paper. So I felt pretty comfortable with the deck, but things just sort of didn't break my way as far as matchups go. But I still really like the deck. I really enjoy playing it, and just want to make some tweaks to it, and continue battling with it as far as that goes. So
I guess just to quickly mention what I actually played, I did play Black Red Zombies.
Yes,
I was looking at some of the interesting snake decks and went back home. We worked on a list that was we think was a little bit better prepared for the meta game, and we really worked hard on the sideboard, a couple of things, and honestly, it was successful. Our record overall wasn't great, but I was 6-1. Our last match, our opponent didn't show, and I had a match I didn't finish, which was going to game 3. So, but I went 4-1 against black green decks. So, if you're interested in that, if you want, just tweet at me. I will gladly share a list. But I probably won't post it publicly anywhere. Like, not that it matters, but like until the RPTQ, I guess. Like, it's not a thing that matters, but I guess I'll still do it that way. So, but if you're interested, I will tweet it to you, I guess.
Yeah, and we had a few good jumping off points from the list that you initially had, as well as some of the lists that have had higher finishes in the Open Series and at the Pro Tour. So we sort of were able to culminate sort of the best list for the weekend, I think. And it did show in the standard matches. You were really handed it to people with Valdar Pariah. Like,
oh my God,
that's such a great card. Can we just like take a minute and be like, that's a great card?
Yeah, that's a sweet Magic card.
There's so many times where I just look over at Mike's board and it's just like, yeah, I'm going to play this and sack 3 creatures, and you don't have a board anymore. That's great. This is great.
Yeah, the only match I lost was to Adam Yurchik, so
there you go.
Not surprised. But also, it was 2 games right in a row where my deck was just like, nah. Like, mulligan a bunch, and then like game 1 I mulliganed, and then like Cathartic Reunioned, and then like looked at my hand after I drew 3 cards and just had 5 lands in my hand, and I was like, yeah, I'm not winning this game. So like, it was stuff like that, but overall, like, it consistently bore out through the day. So
yeah,
but man, I can't regardless of the decks played, even like I just can't stop talking about the event. It was a blast.
It was.
I would drive, I think, most anywhere within that we have driven. Like, I think we've gone, like, Atlanta's the farthest I've gone. I would consider going back as far as Atlanta. You know what I mean? Or like, Charlotte or something. Like, I would drive for an event like this. It was great.
I really want to play in one of these now. I mean, I've played in limited ones. Haven't played in the constructed version. So
it's just like having 3 different matches, like with totally different mindsets going on. It was just like, it was thrilling.
Yeah,
it was thrilling.
And Jordan did play Black Red Reanimator, and it seemed to do well for him for the most part. But legacy matches were like they were flashes in the pan,
Oh my God, we had him. So he played against. I was like a mid round for us, but he played against Sneak and Show, and so like game 1 he lost. And like they're shuffling, and I'm talking to him about his match because like my match is like in between games, and my opponent is talking to Morgan's opponent. Like, they're making decisions based. That was the living end round.
Yeah.
So like I'm talking to him, and like I present to cut, and I turn back my head, and we cut, and we're shuffling, and I turn back as I go to draw my hand, and Jordan is still shuffling, right? And we've been talking about Morgan's modern match and everything else, and I'm like, did you mulligan? He goes, oh no, game 3. He just put a Sire of Insanity in play on turn 1 and his opponent scooped.
Yeah.
so literally, like, I turned away to like turn my head away to shuffle my opponent's deck, and by the time I turned back, they were going to game 3.
Yeah.
It was like, this is actually a magic trick. You just pull like a real what like no, game 3. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it is insanity. Literally, yeah. But he did fairly well with the deck as far as that goes. So
he beat
honestly, I never paid attention to what he was doing.
He beat Ben Freeman round 1, and I didn't watch any of the match because I was playing mine. But I do know that so Ben Freeman's pretty good player in the pro circuit. Like he beat me when I went to PT for Shadows. Like, he was my round 1 draft opponent, just stomped me. So he was playing 4-color Delver, and he goes game 1, and so he goes, all right, well, what's your opponent playing? And he's like, well, he just took a pre-game action to reveal 2 Chancellor of the Annex. So Jordan said he was like, I'll lightning bolt you, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to counter that. And he's like, I had to hope you forgot.
Yeah, it was a pretty sweet tournament.
Yeah, it was really good.
So deck wise, what do we want to talk about? Anything come up here? I mean, I don't feel like standard-wise, like, we could talk about Shaheen's list, but all the other lists seem to be pretty milquetoast, pretty average.
Yeah, I'm not too excited about talking really too much about standard. I think in modern, the big deck we want to talk about is obviously Death Shadow, but we can bridge that sort of to the GP as well.
Sure.
I do want to give a shout out to Eric English, for Legacy, 4th place. He's had a number of good finishes recently, and he played Food Chain.
Yeah.
So he tried his best against Sam Party and definitely took the line of just getting sweet, just basics. He was turn 1 Island, turn 2 Swamp, turn 3 Forest. But he got into the awkward line where they both had Leovolds, and then Party had removal spells, so he was casting them on Eric's turn. So it would be Eric's well, trigger my Leovold. He's yeah, you drew for turn already.
Yeah.
And it was just oh,
killing Leovold in draw steps. Yeah.
Oh god. So
it's rough.
I haven't seen this list before. He has his 3 Manipulate Fates.
Oh my god, I haven't read that.
So it costs a blue and a colorless. It's a sorcery. Search your library for 3 cards, remove them from the game, then shuffle your library, draw a card. So I'm assuming you remove
all 3 Mist Hologriffins.
Three Mist Hologriffins, and then you can't trip.
That's pretty sick.
It's like drawing 3 cards, draw a card.
I guess it's maybe it's 2 Mist Hologriffins and Eternal Scourge because that's an option too.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's probably the first time I've ever seen that card in any deck ever.
So you cast one of them, and the rest of them just sit in your hand to go to Force of Will.
Yeah. Let me take a look here. If we don't have any sort of standard lists or any legacy lists, let's go ahead and just give a quick shout out to the Standard Classic. It had 175 players, and Jonathan Rossum wins one with 4-color Saheeli. And Dave, you put here in quotation marks. Is this the Jerry T's list?
Yeah, I believe it was close to the Jerry T list. Had 2 Aetherworks Marvels in it.
Gotcha.
And the Elder D Fiends.
And the Elder D Fiends.
Yeah, and the Elder D Fiends. So he beat Brad Nelson in the finals. So.
Wow.
Now it could have been a concession, or maybe they split or whatever. I don't know. But
yeah, who knows?
But he was the winner.
Correct. He is listed as the first place winner. So whatever that is worth. And then we had the Legacy Classic. It was won by Daniel Haberek with Eldrazi. So congrats to him. Had 204 players. If I didn't mention that already, which I believe I did. And if you're paying attention. The Legacy Classic, more players than the Standard Classic.
Very true.
And to sort of sweep us into our modern discussion, we'll talk about the Modern Classic here, and just stop off and say congratulations to Joseph Blizzard for winning with Jeskai Control. Now, you're trying to tell me that Jace needs to be unbanned and just controls winning these, these classics.
It's a surprising result to be sure. And he was playing not just your standard, Jeskai Control. He's playing
Kiki Resto combo as well.
Yeah.
Sneaky Kiki, if I remember correctly.
Sneaky Kiki. Yeah. No Pastermize, just
just Restoration Angel.
It's just it's value. You get Wall of Omens and Snapcaster Mages and Restos and Kiki Jiki because sometimes you need to do that.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to combo out. Sometimes you feel like a combo, sometimes you don't. So that's what we have here for the Classic. It defeated, I think, Banho Eldrazi. Came in 2nd place.
I like the Jeskai Control list. You see a card that's starting to see a ton more play, which is Rune Halo.
It's good against Valakut.
Yeah, really good against Valakut. It's a nice, clean answer. Obviously, they can bring in interaction for it, but it feels pretty good. And there's just a couple other things you can just there's fringe strategies you can inadvertently name, which is nice. So.
Honestly, it's not bad against the Death Shadow deck either.
Oh, yeah.
Because they only have Tarmogoyf and Death Shadows for the most part.
Cut out kill 4 of their cards.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty good because it's a named card, right?
Yes.
So it can be anything. So Lightning Storm.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah, that does work.
Though the Ad Nauseam decks also have
Lab Maniac.
Lab Maniac.
Yeah.
They have other ways.
Sure.
But it's something.
I should also mention that Jeff Hoagland was in the top 16 for this. And I mentioned that because you mentioned that Brad Nelson was in the Classic. You want to talk about one of the teams that sort of surprised me? The team of Bryant Brondo and Brad Nelson and Jeff Hoagland did not day 2.
Yeah, that's shocking.
They got crushed. I don't know. Yeah.
And I was like, man, here's like that. I thought that was another like super team that was going to go through. So it does tell you that like I know Owen Turtenwald tweeted out something like, why do they even play the matches for like NASA's team? But like
That was a tongue in cheek, but yeah.
there's plenty of good teams though that like in this format, Magic's tough.
Yeah, I saw that team. I'm like, okay, so we have our current world champion, Platinum Pro, top 10 in the world right now, Brad Nelson, and then Jeff Hoagland, who's maybe a lesser name, but he's still I would say a modern specialist.
On the open circuit, he's a ringer.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I figured that they would have done very well,
Yeah.
but maybe I don't know. I don't know what to say.
All right. Let's move into these awesome GPs. So first of all, the awesome GPs we failed to mention. First we have GP Brisbane, which is won by Oliver Octorok. I mean, excuse me, Oliver Ox.
Doc Ock.
Doc Ox. Oh man, I hope that is his actual nickname. If it isn't, it needs to be his real
Hopefully, he
nickname.
went to school for at least 8 years.
Yeah, exactly. Like just become a doctor. With everyone's favorite Lantern Control.
Which is kind of funny because I'm pretty sure the Death Shadow deck just destroys that deck.
But
But
as we'll see from taking a look at the actual decks that showed up.
it wasn't enforced really.
No, it's not.
There was one. I believe there was one that top 32'd in Brisbane.
What we do see is Dredge. A deck that had recently come across a ban. That kind of weakened it a bit. But there are two of them, in second and third. One of them being piloted by none other than Li Shitian. And it kind of shows up here, and there was even more further down the line, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe I am.
Yeah, Li Shitian was undefeated on day one.
It's crazy.
And then him and Zen Takahashi he made it all the way to the finals.
Yeah.
And I believe they played the same 75.
There's probably like a few cards difference.
Okay.
Probably
something pretty close. I think they're on the same team. They're both on
Sure.
MTG Mint card.
Sure. There's like $100 and some dollar difference between the two decks here on.
Maybe Zen had foils. I don't know.
I don't think that's how they
Maybe he was playing like different fetch lands or something.
Yeah, that's what it is.
know.
I think it's Arid Mesa. Zen's list has 3 Arid Mesas, but he did do better. So
Yeah, it was just like, I don't know, man. I only have Arid Mesas and not whatever.
yeah, not Bloodstained Mire.
Not Bloodstained Mire. But in any case, yeah. I mean, I think if you thought Dredge was dead, I think this shows you that it's definitely not. And you had some skilled players do very well with it. Obviously not as good as it was, but maybe it's at a reasonable power level now, where it's we're okay with Dredge.
I gotta tell you, if you're looking at this top 8 though, and you go Dredge, Living End, man, I don't know if I'd be picking up Dredge to play it in Indianapolis this week.
You done missed the boat. I hate to say.
Like it's like, man, I feel like you're going to see a lot more of those like rest in pieces. So,
it's possible. So, I mean, we're going to talk about the Death Shadow deck, I think, a lot, but it's possible that Dredge is one of the decks that that could do well against that. I don't know how represented Dredge was in Vancouver, because that's the tournament we saw Death Shadow really break out.
Sure.
But it's possible that is a route that you can go if you're trying to fight against the Death Shadow deck.
So there are a couple of really interesting lists in this top 32. I don't know how much you've looked at it at all, Dave.
I glanced at it.
I want you to take a look first at Esper Planeswalkers.
Yep, I did see this one.
21st place.
Yeah.
That's Narset Transcendent.
Yep.
In Modern. So that seems pretty sweet. Oh, Esper Charm's there, by the way.
Yeah, I guess this is kind of the deck that we were saying needed a boost.
Yeah.
Now again, I mean it didn't like win the tournament or dominate or anything like that, but I mean that's a good finish.
The largest Modern tournament. It was like I know it was record breaking for some reason. It was almost 1,000 players for that part of Europe, I think.
It's in Australia. So.
Brisbane. I don't know why. What I was thinking of. Why is it Europe?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That was like one of the dumbest things I ever said. Maybe it was just the largest Modern tournament in Australia. Then maybe that's what I was thinking. I know It might be on the actual mothership, but either way, like 21st in the tournament of 1,000 players at a GP level is not.
I mean, I think it's hard for people to. I mean, obviously, you're not going to have a ton of people from outside of that region travel to Australia.
That's
you know,
true,
you know,
sure.
you'll pull in some players from the Asia Pacific area. But
Let me throw another one at you then. 28th place. Copycat combo.
Yeah. This isn't unheard of. I did see a couple of these lists do well on Magic Online, so it's. I mean, much like the Jeskai list that won the Classic, it's kind of the same. Snapcaster Mages. You're not playing Restoration Angels, but you're playing Feldar Guardians, which not as good. Not as good on its own, but can help you combo off.
So I want to mention like a couple of things in this deck though. Like how good is Sun Titan as an actual finisher in this deck? Like especially if it's late in the game, they've killed a couple of your Saheelis, and you're like, all right, Sun Titan, get back Saheeli, take down Saheeli, make a Sun Titan. Sun Titan trigger, get back another Saheeli. Saheeli comes into play, get rid of the other one. Take down this new Saheeli, make a Sun Titan. Oh, I put a Saheeli in the graveyard?
Is it just infinite?
Yes.
Yeah. Didn't think about that one.
You know what's funny? When I started talking about it, didn't realize it was infinite. Figured it out halfway through.
Hey, there might be something there.
But like, Sun Titan,
hey, maybe you one day could be a member of R&D.
Wow.
Oh man, but like, yeah. So Sun Titan with two Saheeli in the graveyard is infinite.
Yeah.
So so like your opponent think, all right, cool. I finally I worked through all these Saheelis. Oh my gosh! All right, tap out for this threat. Go. Yeah. You're dead.
About that.
Oh, and this one also has haste. So also can still happen on
But
turn
then when
6.
they attack, what are you going to get back? More.
Oh man, I don't know. Like
You just get all
your
the
whole
fetch
graveyard
lands,
comes
all the
into
fetch
play.
lands back.
Like you won't let your opponent concede. Hold on, I have a lot of triggers.
These all need to resolve first, please.
Get back all these spreading seas.
Yeah. I think this is a reasonable deck. You're playing a lot of good cards. I mean, like the standard Jeskai, Lightning Bolts, Path to Exile, Serum Visions, Remand, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's
so
got Jace Architect of Thought on the board. I'm in for this deck. I sold my Saheelis this weekend, getting into another modern deck. So I'll wait till they get banned in standard and they drop again, and I'll pick them back up for this
pick
deck.
them back up. Yeah, there you go.
This is sweet. I thought it was like a really cool, it seemed like a really cool deck.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I mean, there have been people that have, surmised that the cat combo might be good enough for modern, and it's kind of interesting to see people trying to make it work.
I think Saheeli has felt weak in standard, but pushing it in modern is interesting. Like obviously you have Abrupt Decay in that format, but we've talked before that Planeswalkers are actually difficult to kill.
Yeah,
in modern, and especially ones like this one, takes up to 4 when it starts. And with people going even more, a lot more decks you saw moving to even Fatal Push as opposed to always having Lightning Bolt. Saheeli is the kind of card that a control deck like this really does there's long term value in crafting your draws. And it does apply steady pressure in a format where people have to shock and fetch.
Yeah, so, in standard the 1 damage is not very potent, but when 1 damage over time does kind of add up. I mean, in modern,
yeah, and especially in a deck that still has Snapcaster Beats as a backup plan, it's interesting. So, yeah, good job. So, any other decks you want to talk about in? I will say I looked at there's a deck list that's just called Vengeance. It's Goryo's Vengeance, but I had to look at it. I was like,
I know. I was like, what is this? I saw that.
Sweet Vengeance.
This was just kind of the standard Gristol brand, not
special,
the breaking and entering version.
Vengeance is by far a much better name for that deck.
Yeah, I think that might have been the biggest upset of the weekend. I think there was a lot of talk of people saying, the Kariza's expertise, breaking and entering version of the Gristle Brand Goryo's Vengeance deck. That was kind of like the new hotness that we saw. I believe it was Dan Ward finished second in New York regionals, and that was kind of like the new kid on the block deck. That was like, man, this is really powerful, but it really didn't show up, or it just got hated out, or I don't know what. Didn't really see it anywhere in either of these GPs.
Shout out to everybody who played those cards. And shout out to Chaz Andres, who encouraged me to buy a bunch of copies of Breaking and Entering about a year and a half ago. Because I definitely made some good money on them this weekend. So thank you.
You're a monster.
Well, you know what? I bought a lot of them for 10 cents a piece, and
They're sold out on Star City at $4.
I know.
Now.
I thank you.
You did it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Congrats.
I will say, Michael Majors had an article I think today talking about the list he was trying to run that wasn't it wasn't doing this many unfair things. It was trying Henny's expertise and SRAM's expertise and to play Beck and Call essentially in a control shell, but it was also playing Ancestral Visions.
Oh, okay.
So I think there's a couple. Like I think the tuning is what's happening now, but I do think that like there's something to this. Like
there's something there, but yeah.
I mean, like even the way the modern works, like especially if you're playing sort of control matchups, like SRAM's expertise get 3 guys and into Ancestral, that can just be the game. You know what I mean? Like oh, you have all those ways to protect this, and you're just gonna attack every turn now. Like that's rough. And like obviously, Henny's expertise against anything that's like committing a bunch of creatures to the board at Henny's expertise, and I will go ahead and draw 3 cards. Your turn. Like, no, I'm good. I'm going to concede this game. I'm done. So, but I think there's some cool ways to build it. And I also, I think we were talking about this before the cast, but I've heard some rumblings that because of that, if people really do push that too far, there's some rumblings that they could be looking at eradicating how fuse cards work with, because like the old double face cards, you could cast the higher side the way that this works. But with Fuse, you get both. So like casting Beck and Call is just like put 4 creatures into play and draw 4 cards, and Breaking and Entering is, mill 8 and then just like
get an Emrakul back.
Get an Emrakul back with haste that doesn't get sacrificed.
Yeah, it just stays in play.
Like that's a lot for essentially 3 mana and 2 cards. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that.
Yeah. I think that would probably be a smart move. Getting these free effects with Fuse just feels kind of nasty.
Michael Majors talks about playing catch and release. What world are we in when catch and release is getting like talked about in an article? Like this is monstrous.
You could just like destroy a bunch of lands with catch and release, right?
You absolutely you can. So,
whew, boy howdy. Modern, what a fun time for everyone. Anything else from Brisbane that we want to touch on before departing to Vancouver?
Nope, just a
shorter flight than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Congrats to all the rocks.
Yeah, Doc Ock.
Man, he's even got like the OO name that Marvel loves.
Yeah, man. Just that alliteration, just everything they could ever want more.
It's not alliteration.
Not
it's sonnets.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Jeez, sonnets is vowels.
Sorry, it's been a while since I've been in a situation where I needed to know that.
Less longer for me.
So Vancouver. This is where we're going to be talking shop about this whole Death Shadow thingamabob that seems to be the new hotness, the new / old hotness. Josh Layton was our winner in Vancouver, playing none other than Death Shadow aggro. Now,
which I feel like is a misnomer. It's not really an aggro.
Yeah. I feel like at this point in time, I feel like you could probably get away with it with the older versions. Even then, they're more of a combo deck when it breaks down to it.
Yeah, that was kind of a zoo deck. I like calling it Death Shadow Jund because it is more like a Jund deck.
It's called New Jund.
Yeah,
New Jund City.
It honestly
New
is.
Jund City?
It honestly is like New Jund. I think like this is just a better version.
So all I see is Abzan now. So New Jund. I christened thee New Jund. King Jund.
New Josh Layton's New Jund guy. No, but he had Josh Layton, Jerry Thompson, Sam Black all in the top 4 with Death Shadow. We'll just call it Death Shadow. Yeah,
fair enough.
And then I guess the last hope was Jonathan Zasek playing Merfolk, which I guess he's well known for playing, and that's the only deck he ever plays.
I think he's like a prominent streamer, I believe.
I think he has a YouTube channel.
Yeah, he's got
your
channel,
YouTube or something like that.
But, he had a pretty nice looking. It was like all foil Merfolk deck, so that's the only deck he plays. But he played it well, and I honestly, looking at the matchup, I mean, he pretty much crushed Sam Black in the top 4, and I thought he would have a pretty good chance of taking it down, but
He kept a one-lander game 1, and I think maybe another one-lander game 2, or game 3, I mean.
Yeah, honestly, the game 2 in the finals, the game that he won was unbelievable. Definitely go back and watch that if you haven't seen it. I don't know how he won the game. I don't know how. At one point he had no cards in hand and no permanents, and then 2 turns later he had a spreading seas and 3 creatures on the field. So, yeah, I think if you watch the final game, game 3, you kind of see why the Death Shadow deck is so good. He went turn 1 discard into turn 2 Tarmogoyf, into turn 3 Death Shadow Tarmogoyf or something like that. It was just okay, disrupt you, put you on the back foot, play some giant monsters, deal with it.
And you saw I think the he set up an attack where all he had to do was cycle a swamp or a Street Wraith to for the lethal. So you even Street Wraith, whereas I think Street Wraith was a card just a velocity card for Death Shadow Zoo. Mm-hmm. For this deck, you can see you hold it. You know what I mean? How you just a changing play style compared to what we saw, like you said before, is the aggro version. So
yeah, and actually. You actually cast it a lot more in this deck. No, it's not really the primary plan, but sometimes you get in those spots where the game gets drawn out a little bit, and it turns out a 5-mana 3/4 Swamp Walk can't be Fatal Pushed, can't be Lightning Bolted. A lot of times it's unblockable. It's actually good. You saw a game in the top 8 where Sam Black hardcast a Street Wraith and then started ticking up Liliana the Last Hope and got to Ultimate.
Yeah.
Part of the reason is because he had a Street Wraith block. So, yeah, definitely don't expect to see that kind of stuff in Modern, but sometimes it happens. But I think the real... Now, this deck is... I played this at SCG Regionals a couple weeks ago. And I think a lot of people kind of gave me some weird looks. And again, I don't take credit for the deck at all. I mean, I pulled a list off of Magic Online, which is actually what Sam and Jerry and Josh all did as well. But the deck definitely looks weird at first glance. You have, in some ways, I guess you could classify it as aggro because you can get quick Death Shadows and Tarmogoyfs in play. But also, I mean, you're running 7 or 8 discard spells, 4 Thoughtseizes, and then you have 3 or 4 Inquisitions. You have things like Kolaghan's Command in the deck. Some versions run Abrupt Decay. So you have Liliana the Veil. So, I mean, it has a lot of the traditional Jund cards in it, but then you also, you kind of pivot and you're like, oh, you have Temur Battle Rage as well. So it kind of seems like just a mismatch of cards, but it really does work well. Traverse the Ulvenwald is an unbelievable card in this deck.
Yeah, it's something that you can enable early on. It's something, honestly, you just cast to find a land. I imagine it happens a fair amount of the time.
Yeah, I mean, the deck is running 18 lands. Honestly, it doesn't really feel that light, though. I mean, you have Street Wraiths and Mishra's Baubles, which can't trip you. So it almost feels like 21 lands because you're drawing cards off of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can search for lands with Traverse. But I mean, you're running so few actual threats. I mean, you have your 4 Death Shadows and your 4 Tarmogoyfs. Those are going to be your main ways to victory. But having 4 Traverse as well is it's almost like just adding 4 more threats to the deck. I mean, a lot of times you're just going to be searching up a Death Shadow and playing it, for 2 mana in late game, which is perfectly fine. Now, there's been some in most of the lists that are out there right now. You'll see a kind of a one of flex spot. So your creature suite is 4 Death Shadow, 4 Tarmogoyf, 4 Street Wraith, and then usually there's a one of Gore Clan Rampager is kind of, I guess, the standard card. But we saw Renegade Rallier that Sam Black was playing in that slot. And there's been some versions online that are playing main deck Ranger Vios, which is a sweet one because you just play that and then get 2 Death Shadows.
Yeah.
So
it seems fine.
Yeah, it's very nice. And that card's actually doubly sweet because it can't get Inquisitioned, so they have to have Thoughtseize to get out of your hand. Yeah, I mean, as opposed to the old kind of Death Shadow Zoo decks that are trying to just kill you as fast as possible, this is much more robust and resilient deck. Like you might think, oh, okay, well, they don't have that many creatures that I have to worry about, so as long as I can keep them off the board, then I'm fine, and that's reasonable. But you do have things like Lily Out of the Last Hope and Kolaghan's Command that can return those creatures, so you're going to have to deal with them over and over unless you have something like a Path to Exile.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you might be able to temporarily keep it down, but eventually it will recur.
Mm. Are there some ways that people could be attacking this deck that seem a little bit obtuse or sort of out of the out of the ordinary? I would say. Let me give you an example. Like Graveyard Hate, would that be something that you think would be effective? Because I wouldn't initially think that that's something you bring in against this deck. But not necessarily like a Grafdigger's Cage, but like something that exiles the graveyard, a relic, a Rest in Peace, something like that.
Yeah, I think Rest in Peace is definitely worth bringing in against this deck. Being able to just basically completely turn off Tarmogoyf as a threat.
And Traverse.
In Traverse, yeah. So, I mean, then you only have to worry about Death Shadows as a threat. And if you're running white, you probably have some number of Path to Exiles in your deck, so then you can just basically conserve your removal for the Death Shadows. So, yeah, I think it's definitely worth playing. It shuts off, I guess, part of Kolaghan's Command. Part of what makes it so good in this deck is your ability to recur. Even just for like recurring a Street Wraith to draw a card, oftentimes is going to be pretty good. Yeah, I definitely would do that. I think Relic is fine. In playing the deck, I played against Relic a couple different times, and it's ranged from really, really good to just okay. It really kind of depends on where you're at in the game and how many traverses I have. If I draw a bunch of traverses and they're not turned on, then it's not, the Relic's going to be pretty good against me.
What about Surgical?
Surgical against this deck?
Yeah.
I don't know. That one I don't like as much just because it's kind of a one shot. So first you have to kill one of the threats.
Sure.
So are you like trying to hit a Tarmogoyf for Death Shadow?
Yeah, Fatal Push it out of the black deck.
Yeah, that might be a lot to ask though, just because this deck has so much disruption. You have discard, so they could easily take either the removal spell or the Surgical out of your hand, and then it's kind of like it's not really doing much. So I don't think it's really that good against this, but yeah, I mean, and even these versions are running Lingering Souls in the board. So when I first started playing, I thought decks like traditional Jund or Grixis variants, Grixis Delver, Grixis Control would be kind of tough because they have a lot of removal spells. They have a lot of ways to interact. But as it turns out, the answer is just Lingering Souls because they're trying to spot remove you a bunch. You're like, okay, well, I'll just cast this one card that puts 4 bodies into play, and damage-based sweepers like Anger of the Gods really don't do a whole lot against this deck. You're never going to hit a Tarmogoyf or a Death Shadow for the most part. So people are probably boarding them out or not boarding those types of cards in. So. Yeah, I mean, what it boils down to is turn 1 discard and to turn 2, Tarmogoyf has always been pretty good and modern, and being able to back that up with additional cheap, large creatures like a Death Shadow makes matchups that traditional Jund had a tough time with, like Tron, into maybe not like the best matchup ever, but it makes it certainly winnable. Like you can just run them over.
You can still just like Death Shadow into a Battle Rage before they can really assemble, which is nice.
Right. And Battle Rage is a card that kind of looks out of place here, but it lets you fight through a bunch of if decks have chump blockers, so anything with Lingering Souls in it, or like small creature decks, like any kind of company or green based deck, you can kind of just go over the top and just hit him in one shot, and it lets you beat decks like Burn, which you don't have a ton of time against, and that's kind of one of the more tricky matchups because like you're trying to reduce your own life total, but obviously Burn is going to do that. it's going to do that a lot for you as well. So kind of balancing how much life you want to lose on your own and how much you want to let them kind of help you is kind of tricky.
But I do want to mention Tarfire. I saw a lot of grumbling from like Sam Black saying the card was just like not very good consistently.
Yeah. So that is that's a card that I questioned at first as well, and I was like, man, this seems like, I don't know, even like Seal of Fire seemed better because like you could turn on your failed pushes, like sacking a Seal of Fire. But it's interesting because you do want to hit Delirium for your Traverse the Overwalds, and the deck actually like doesn't have that many instants in it. So lands are very easy to get into the graveyard. And then you can usually either get an artifact from Mishra's Bauble or a creature from your Street Wraith. So one of those you'll generally have. So you have land and then one other. And then sorcery is very easy, yeah, because you have all the discard spells and things like Collective Brutality and things like that. Or even just like a Traverse for a land. But Tarfire adding like 2, adding both instant and tribal, like lets you actually get turn 2 Delirium like pretty easily. Now, it may not be entirely necessary. You don't always have to traverse on turn 2, for a creature. So it's possible that I think what you'll see going forward is people moving more towards more main deck fatal pushes and less Tarfires.
As well, like I think the same like you mentioned, like Dismember is also an option.
Yeah, Dismember is kind of nice because one thing that you might have trouble with is like a fast Tasigur, which the removal that you're playing, like you have Liliana the Veil, but that's not always the most reliable because they could just have something, anything else, a Snapcaster or something like that. And you have otherwise really no way to remove a Tasigur or like Reality Smasher or something like that. So, yeah, it's losing life can actually be a feature from Dismember,
Yeah.
So, that's not the worst idea I've ever heard. But, yeah, I mean, it's hard to even like sideboard specific cards for this deck just because it does have all the 1 mana discard. There's like, even if you draw something in your opening hand, they can just strip it out. And then you're kind of playing off the top.
Yeah.
So I know I talked a lot about it, but I think this is a deck that like you're going to see a lot of, I think, this weekend in Indy and probably going forward. So, I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely a deck that you should be aware of. Or I still don't know if I buy the Dave Against the World, but I do buy the questionable glances of people not like legitimizing the deck in their mind. Well, the time has come.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't think this deck is a real thing still, even, then you're definitely wrong. This is, still a... I think that, it's a different strategy than what it used to be. And so you can't really compare the two decks. They have overlap, but they're not kind of running on the same functioning, the same axis, I should say.
It is honestly like you took the Death Shadow Zoo deck and then Jund, and then you just like mashed them together because it has elements of both. Mm. It's like a Jund deck that can kill you quickly, or a Zoo deck that can go long. It can play both. And honestly, like that's why I like playing it so much, because I like decks that can do that. Like that's why I like stuff like Delver, because it's like you can be aggressive against the matchups that you need to be aggressive in, and you can also play control in the matchups that you need to play control in. So I think that's really important in a format like Modern, where you have so many different decks. I think being able to pivot and take those different roles is, not every deck can do that. And I think having that flexibility is, you're going to be successful in a format like Modern when you can do that.
Well, there you go. Find you a deck that can do both.
Yeah. Now you mentioned like what could be good against this. I actually think Affinity might be. Now there are a lot of cards that are good against Affinity that this deck has, but Affinity can kind of get under. Like Thoughtseize isn't really a great card against Affinity, and especially was it Master of Ethereum? Is that the card? What am I thinking?
Edge Champion.
Edge Champion. No. Edge Champion is a card that like, you actually can't remove. Like you have Liliana the Veil, but you're not reliably going to be able to just hit an Edge Champion with that against Affinity. So So I only played against Affinity once with the deck and I lost. It was a close match, but as champion was definitely a problem, and they can kind of get under you. And I think any other deck that can kind of get under, like a fast Zoo deck, I think would be a tough matchup for Death Shadow Zoo. So I think there are definitely ways to attack it if it becomes like too good. So.
Cool. We want to talk about some other decks?
Yeah.
I want to talk about 8-Rack for a second.
Yeah.
I feel bad. It says 8-Rack was Michael Penner, who lost his win in, unfortunately, to John Stern, who was playing Affinity. And I got to give a shout out here to Michael Penner. We watched that match on our drive back from Baltimore. And, John Stern's obviously a pro player, a good player. But I really felt that Penner, at least in the game 2, especially with this match, really outplayed him in a matchup that's probably bad for 8-Rack consistently.
Was it the fatal push play?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh god.
Like, oh my god.
You really baited him into like going all in.
I was yelling we were yelling at the phone. I was like, he has this. Like, he obviously has this. And it was just, I really thought he took a matchup that I think was bad and really almost took the match. Like, he played a really, and obviously this 8-Rack is not a common deck. So if you're not familiar with 8-Rack, it gets that name from playing 8 rack effects. The rack being a 1-mana artifact that damages your opponent for each card they have fewer than 3 in their hand at their upkeep, and then they have Shrieking Affliction, which is an enchantment that does a something similar. So they essentially want you to discard your hand and then take 3 each turn until you die. They do this by playing tons of discard spells, but also obviously Liliana the Veil. It plays also Smallpox, which is sweet.
Smallpox is great. Yeah.
And also like it gets Fatal Push, which like a pretty big upgrade for a deck that just wants to cast 1 and 2 mana black spells the entire game.
Yeah, I imagine that they probably relied heavily on things like Dismember as like a 1-mana removal spell, and like getting Fatal Push probably like obviously he's still playing 2 Dismember, but it kind of gives you a little bit more game against aggressive decks, which I imagine gave you fits, but man. Yeah.
I also really like the White Splash, 1 Godless Shrine and 4 Concealed Courtyards. And for white, he has Lingering Souls on the board, but he also has Fragmentize, Standard All-Star.
And Disenchant.
And Disenchant. And obviously, like, there are some things that the deck has to deal with, but it has to be able to deal with Leyline of Sanctity. Hard to make your opponent discard cards if you can't target them.
If they are John Cena and you cannot see them.
And again, this is a deck that just wants to only have, like, it doesn't want to have to play a lot of lands because a lot of its discard effects are balanced. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to discard your lands to your Raven's Crime so you can can hit them, or Liliana the Veil. Obviously you could just play them there, but I'm saying like you're gonna have times where you want to tick that up and you don't want to have to play all your lands out. So Fragmentize is a sweet sort of option. It conveniently hits 4 or less, and Leyline is look at that, 4 or less. So, and this deck doesn't care about being a sorcery. It never cares about anything being a sorcery. It's all sorceries.
Yeah.
So, but I want to give him a shout out because he took an obscure strategy to a really good finish and a huge GP, and really played. I think if you go back and watch that match against John Stern, like he played a really great match against a rough matchup and almost took it down. So, congrats to him.
Yeah. I think even just going back to the top 8 for a second, I mean, other than the 3 players that were playing Death Shadow, you had John Stern, like you said, playing Affinity. Eric Severson's another, I think he's a gold pro. Did pretty well. He played Abs and Company to a top 8 finish here. So I mean, yeah, you had a lot of big names in the top 8. I think it's pretty cool too to see just like the mix of players that you had. So you had the 3-player playing Death Shadow aggro, which is relatively a new deck. We'll just say it's a new deck. It's not a new concept, but it's the first version of this that's really kind of broke out and done well.
Sure.
But then you also had other players that's like you had Jonathan Zasek playing Merfolk, which is the only deck that he plays.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You had John Stern, which he pretty much only plays Affinity.
Oh no! If Monarch continues to be the format where you can be a true specialist and be rewarded for it, and it's nice.
Right, but I'm saying
you Michael Penner as well.
I'm saying you had both here though. You had people playing like the decks that they have always played for years, and then you also had some players saying, what, this deck looks really good. I think it's gonna be a really good call for this weekend, and they just like blew up the tournament.
What a terrible format. Speaking of decks that got banned into oblivion, let's mention Amulet Titan in 16th place.
Yeah, Bobby Fortinelli.
Fortanelli?
It's
I know.
It looks like for Taylor.
Yeah, this is Summer Bloom, Bloom Titan without the Summer's Bloom. It's playing as a Sakura Tribe Scout.
Yeah, -4 Summer Bloom, +4 Sakura Tribe Scout.
Beyond that, it really isn't that different from what it was before.
Yeah, he's not playing the Hive Mind combo, which is something that they used to have. But,
Right.
But
But yeah, just I would give a little shout out there. I know a lot of players were upset the deck got banned, and we all said like, you can just keep playing this deck. And we've had a number of players locally who did just keep playing this deck.
yeah, if you remember, he was the one. He was the player that won the SCG Open. Basically, the straw that broke the camel's back right before Summer Bloom got banned. I think it was like a week before. That was the tournament where was it Bill Caminos played like 3 Primeval Titans on turn 2 or something, like in that top 8.
Yeah, that was gross.
So yeah, but Bobby was the one that won that tournament with this deck. So I mean, this is obviously a deck that he really enjoys playing and has continued to play it. So yeah, it's kind of like you said. I mean, he still thinks it's good enough, and he was on camera a bunch, and it was kind of a mixed bag. You know, I think he won a couple and then lost a couple. So
Yeah, good run though.
yeah, no, absolutely.
One more deck I want to mention before we jump out of this. Click on Bant Eldrazi, which was in 21st place. This is Ivan Jen.
Ivan Jen. He was the one. He was a player that was playing. What was that combo deck in Standard? Combo deck. I can't think of it now.
Thrilling content here, Dave.
No,
really
played,
hitting it home.
Now I'm gonna have to look it up. No, you guys can go.
So I looked at this. Because I've been looking at Bant Eldrazi list because Morgan and I were both. I was putting the pieces together. Morgan obviously played the deck, and I clicked on this and went, "Wait a second, what? This looks like a Chord deck." Well, I was close. It's not a Chord deck. It's an Eldritch Evolution deck with an Eldrazi shell. So it has Eldrazi Displacer. It has Reality Smashers. It has Matter Reshapers, but
Thought-Knot-Seer.
It has Thought-Knot-Seer, but also has Birds and Gaddock Teague and Eternal Witnesses and Kitchen Finks and Linvalas, and this is a really interesting mixed bag. It also goes all the way up to Sigarda, Host of the Herons, and Verdurous Gearhulk, which Verdurous Gearhulk and Eldrazi Displacer, which can be done in Standard, pretty good. But it's playing 4 Path and 4 Eldritch Evolution. This is a crazy toolbox deck. Like, this is crazy, right? But you could have draws that look just like Bant Eldrazi, and your opponent won't have any idea what's going on. Like, the next game, you're like, okay, then I'll play Gaddock Teague. And they're like, what? And they're like, all right, Kitchen Finks. They're like, no, I don't know. This isn't what your deck was doing.
Stop this madness. This deck is playing Deadeye Harpooner in the sideboard. Yeah, I guess I mean, by default, if you're grabbing it with your Eldritch Evolution, you have definitely triggered Revolt.
Well, if you flicker it with Eldrazi Displacer, you've triggered Revolt.
Also triggered Revolt.
You could almost play this deck in Standard.
Yeah.
I want you to understand.
Losing out on fetch lands is...
No. You don't
Do you have... You certainly have that many, I guess. 4
Eldritch Evolutions, Verdurous Gearhulk, Reality Smasher, Thought-Knot-Seer, Matter Reshaper, Eldrazi Displacer. Like... Standard playable.
Yeah, I think this deck relies heavily on the accelerants, like the turn 1, like elf.
But I'm just saying. So
yeah.
So Ivan Jen was the player who won a Star City Open playing the Jeskai Heroic combo deck with the Jeskai Ascendancy, Springleaf Drum, Retraction Helix.
Okay. Wow.
That was sweet. I remember it was a sweet deck. I couldn't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it was like a combo deck that we had never seen before.
He's got an All His Dust in his sideboard. What is this deck?
This guy's just a brew master, apparently.
I would have no idea how to play this deck. I just understand this. Looking at this, I would just be like, I play creatures on curve. I hope this is good enough. I don't know what I'm evolutioning for. This deck looks really sweet. So yeah, just cruising through the list. Bant Eldrazi. Oh, what is this?
Yeah, this is not what I was expecting.
So, I mean, again, you talk about like what can show up in Modern. Look at this. I can play this deck.
Wow. It is it's fairly unique. It is you'd have to find a way to sell people on it over playing just like Absent Court or something like that. It's also just green white. I don't know why. Where's the blue? Like it doesn't exist.
I mean, it has Noble Hierarch in it, man. Adds blue.
It does. It also displays no blue cards. I got nothing for you.
Yeah. So this is green white Eldrazi, not bad.
I'm not saying it's great or anything. I just thought it was really nifty.
Yeah.
No, it's something cool you can do in the format. I think it's great.
So I wonder if this is the player. I was listening to Cedric Phillips' podcast earlier, and he had Arilax. They did like a car cast on the way back, and Arilax was talking about he played against somebody who had a Torpor Orb in play, and then Eldritch Evolutioned into Limvala against his Abzan Cord deck.
Jeez.
And he's just like, okay, I'm dead. can't do anything.
It's actually insane.
So yeah, I wonder if this was the
This
player.
had to have been it. So.
Yeah, it must have been.
Who else is playing Torpor Orb Limvala?
No one, from what I could see.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's nice though. That's sweet.
Yeah, some crazy interactions. Also, I do want to point out there are a couple of infect lists that do show up. I think it's a 17th place and a 30th place. So, if you're worried that that deck might have not survived or something like that, definitely take a look. It's still something that is available for you to be able to play. So, and that's always good to see when a deck still exists and still can perform well. It's not as powerful as it once was, but can still be effective.
But it's as good once as it ever was.
Hey Morgan, let me ask you this.
Sure.
What's up with Eldrazi Tron?
What do you mean? What's up with Eldrazi Tron?
So this was like kind of a deck for a while,
Yeah.
for a long time, really.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's just like gained a lot of popularity. Like I see it all over the place. People are writing about it, talking about it, doing videos. It's popping up on Magic Online a lot more. Like what?
So
I don't understand what now. Like what?
A few things. So you had Infect get worse, and you had Dredge get worse, which I don't think were very positive matchups for the deck.
Mm-hmm.
You had, in turn, you had Chalice of the Void get better. And Chalice of the Void is like one of the best things you could be doing in the format. Then Eldrazi Tron is like one of the best decks to take advantage of it, because I should say like Chalice on like 1 or 0, or even 2, like Eldrazi Tron kind of goes over the top of that fairly easy, and it has more advantages. It does have advantages over like regular Tron because you can still play a mid-range game. Okay. Like you still have the potentiality to cast turn 2 Thought-Knot Seer. And you can still like go all the way up to playing Ulamog. So that's kind of the advantage it has over like Band Eldrazi. Like you can go over the top of them in that facet.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And then the newest edition is Walking Ballista.
Yeah, that's the
and that is a new edition for all of Tron, realistically. But Walking Ballista is a gross magic card, especially if you have a lot of mana. Being able to like charge your Ballista, then use it effectively against your opponents is pretty big. And then people have caught on to Basilisk Collar as being the combo enabler, because you're already playing Endbringer, which pings opponents or creatures, which is really good when you give it Death Touch. And then Walking Ballista is insane if you give it Death Touch, turns out. So that seems to be sort of where the format is going. Yeah, that is kind of the reason why people have been looking to play Eldrazi Tron over like other versions of Tron.
Yeah. Okay, so I could understand like why you'd want to play this over like Tron, but like, do you think this is better or worse than Bant Eldrazi, or do you think it's just they're just different decks and they do different things?
I think they're different decks. If I were going against like an unknown field, I probably wouldn't want to play Bant Eldrazi just because I think it has more game against other things. There are certain decks that just you have a hard time beating with Eldrazi Tron, in my opinion. I think Death Shadow might be you might have to like tune the sideboard a little bit more to beat Death Shadow.
Yeah,
because you don't necessarily have a lot of effective removal spells against them. Chalice can potentially just be like too slow because of all the discard.
Yeah, you have the discard, and the Shadow also has like Call against Command and
exactly,
and sometimes Abrupt Decay.
And since you can't effectively get all the pieces of the Urzatron as effectively as just a regular like green X Tron deck, sometimes you struggle with casting your bigger spells. Something like All Is Dust, it could potentially be very effective against a Death Shadow deck that has permanents that are colored, as it turns out.
Yeah.
But you're just dead most of the time before
sometimes
that
they
happens.
just rip a Kolaghan's command and then play it.
Yeah. So
I did that to Morgan at FNM last week.
yeah. So sometimes, like, I think the deck is definitely a contender now. Definitely something that you should play, just because the Eldrazi that you're trying to play are very powerful. I've seen some people say that, like, Chalice is kind of, people have seen it and it's kind of losing its sort of luster at this point in time. So maybe you can modify the deck to play more of something else and less Chalices, which may be correct going forward. I'm no expert with the deck, but I do know that it's just something that is a little. It used to be a bit off the beaten path, and people didn't know how to play against it, and still capable of doing very, very powerful things, but still playing like a decent mid range game, which is something that regular Tron can't do.
Seems like Chalice is kind of like a necessary evil for this deck, because it seems like Burn might be a pretty tough matchup.
Yeah.
But like having the Chalice gives you a chance against that.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. So like if Chalice is sort of waning on being like a powerful thing that you could be doing in the format, then this deck will also wane in its power.
Sure. But I do think, going back to Bant Eldrazi for a second, I do think Bant Eldrazi, I think, is better against the Death Shadow deck, just because you have things like Path to Exile and Engineered Explosives in that list. And like I was saying earlier, like Reality Smasher is kind of hard to deal with from the Death Shadow side. And being able to deploy that, I guess, a little bit faster, because you have like Noble Hierarchs as well as Eldrazi Temples to kind of power that out.
Yeah,
I think it seems to be a little bit more proactive in its game plan.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if it's good. That's actually a matchup I want to test, because it seems close.
Yeah,
to
in
me.
In honesty, like it's a deck that plays 4-path at all points in time, and definitely has effective sideboard cards against the strategy. So I would expect it to be sort of a close matchup for Death Shadow.
Rest in peace, like we talked about earlier. I think, yeah.
Which is surprising, but I feel like Bant Eldrazi is probably, it's a mid-range Jund-ish sort of deck. Probably not as 50-50 against everything, but I would expect it to kind of have those numbers against a lot of different decks.
I actually just literally essentially bought into this deck this last week, just because I was close to it anyways, and I like that strategy. But I think it's impressive how many decks and strategies, even like Displacer and Drowner and Hope, just sort of like incidentally
It just blanks.
Yeah. Like Emrakul is in play. Oh, that's cool. Before combat, blink it, tap it, and that'll that's a thing that not a lot of decks can consistently do. You know what I mean? Like Infect and even Death Shadow. You know what I mean? It's like it's hard to fight through all these taps.
Drowner Hope is very difficult to beat from the Shadow side.
You know what I mean? Especially if you're not playing a removal spell that can actively kill it, then you're not going to sack it to Liliana ever. So
you just have to try to Thoughtseize that bad boy and get on with your day.
And I also think that it's also obviously the best Cavernous Souls deck in the format, which you could argue both of them I guess are but it gives you just incidental, like you said, incidental game against a lot of decks where you're like, oh, I wasn't even like Boggles, for example, that Morgan had to play against. Not a great matchup, but sideboard wise, he wasn't thinking about Boggles, but the sideboard actually offered a lot of play. You know what I mean?
Blessed Alliance, good card.
You know what I mean?
Is all of Dust good against them?
Well,
in Eldrazi Tron, yeah.
But even Bant Eldrazi, as I'm saying, Worship is obviously pretty good against them. Engineered Explosives are obviously good. So you just have incidental game against a lot of strategies, which is nice. But I guess I like Bant Eldrazi now.
But I just think that having these two Eldrazi strategies really speaks to how powerful those Eldrazi cards are. Period.
With Eldrazi Temple.
Yes, with
Asterisk. Of course, with Eldrazi Temple.
Yeah, with Eldrazi Temple for sure.
I think even in Standard, obviously Eldrazi Temple, is a huge deal. But if Standard had a Elvish Mystic, I think that's how close we are to seeing a really good mid-range Eldrazi deck. You know what I mean? Like I really think it's that close.
It's for the best that we don't.
Whatever.
I mean, apparently for WotC, that's just how it's gonna be. No more one-mana elves. Sorry. Anything else from Vancouver that we want to talk about?
Nope.
Awesome.
Are we sure that we have all of the tournaments from this week?
I believe we covered everything. As far as I know, if
Hard
we
to
missed
call it
anything,
a wrap up if it's like a bunch of loose ends.
yeah. So we'll go ahead and we'll talk about what's coming up for the weekend here. So we have Starcy Games Indianapolis, which is going to be modern, and we have GP Utrecht, which is going to be standard. So 2 tournaments to keep your eye on over the weekend.
I know which one I'll be watching.
Probably modern.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I may try to make it out to Indianapolis on Sunday. I'm a bit undecided of whether I want to make the trek or not. So we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Sweet modern classic action.
Yeah, I mean that's what I would play. I don't think I can get away with going to Indy on Saturday, having back-to-back weekends away from the home. And I don't really want to push it, to be honest. So Sunday, my wife works, so we'll see if I can sneak out and go play some classic moderns.
I would like to play modern this weekend, but I already have some plans. And same thing, like going second week in a row. I'll actually be up in Cleveland to. If you listen to other podcasts, my brother and I are going to see the No Sleep podcast live. They're touring, so
yeah,
pretty excited for that. But
pretty unique event.
Yeah, really unique, but no magic.
Yeah, no magic at the No Sleep podcast event.
Hopefully not. That'd be actually terrifying.
Yeah, I guess that's true with the content that the No Sleep podcast does. If you were to see genuine magic, it might be utterly terrifying.
If you are not familiar with No Sleep podcast, it is a horror fiction podcast
Correct.
based off of the No Sleep Reddit. So
yeah.
Scary.
Yeah, scary things. But that is going to be everything that is happening over the weekend. If you guys want to, check out some ways that you can contact us, we do have a Twitter. It is Your End Step, and if you add us, it's at Your End Step because it makes sense that way. We also have a Facebook page. You can do a quick search on Facebook for at Your End Step, and we pop up. We also have an email address at yourendstep@gmail.com. You can also find our lovely sponsor, Comic Town, via the Facebook, as it is called, doing quick search for Comic Town from Gaming Center. Again, check out their events. They just announced a whole bunch of them, so there's a little bit of something for everyone if you enjoy playing Magic. So go check out their events. As far as where you can download our show, you can get us at iTunes via any of your Apple products, or on the Google Play Music Store via your Android products. And we're also on MTG Cast. And while you're going to check out our show via MTG Cast, you can check out some other lovely Magic the Gathering podcasts that are out there. There's a little bit of something for everyone, so definitely check it out and see what piques your interest, as it were. We also do have a website. It's at yourendstep.com. You can also listen to the show streamed from there as well. So if you have like a desk job that lets you have access to it, and that's how you listen to anything, you can also listen to us there and stream our show directly from our website. But I do believe that is pretty much going to be everything for this week of At Your End Step. We do appreciate you listening, and we'll catch you next time.